This is one of my most favorite times of year when it comes to the growing season, and that's because it's almost like a buffet out here, and if you look at my hands, it's almost a giveaway. I just can't stay out of these small fruits. I'm sorry I had to take a break to do that, but they're just so tempting, and of course we've got so many varieties out here too. Sitting next to the black raspberry bushes, and they're a perennial, and we've harvested quite a few here, and they actually come off in a cluster form, kind of like the strawberries, where one will ripen at a time. And the distinguishing characteristics between the black raspberry and a blackberry is that when you pull the raspberries off, it leaves a hollow center, and the calyx remains on the plant, where it all comes off on the blackberry, and there is quite a difference in that. Now we've also got some red raspberries, but they really do the poorest of all of the fruits that we have here. They're coming along a little late, and we're not sure if we'll even get any production out of them. We've got several varieties of the blackberries, and they range in a lot of large sizes. Again, they're very scrumptious, and we've also just starting to harvest our blueberries. And like a lot of the fruits, the larger ones are the ones that come off the very first. Now our other small fruit is our grapes, and we've been spraying trying to control this fungus disease called black rot. And we've tried to control it this year, but with the rain, it's pretty much been to no avail. So we're getting some disease on it, but we're going to still try to salvage some of those as best we can. Now, some of our tree fruits, we've got a great crop of sour cherries this year. We're harvesting those, and of course, the darker red, the better ripeness you get with them. And they've got seeds in them, so they're a lot of work, but they're still very tasty in a cherry pie. And for the first time, we've got some pineapple quince fruit, which is very similar to a pear. And they're very fuzzy this time of year, and we're really pleased with that. We've got a good crop load, even considering the size of the tree, and we hope that it will come along and we'll get some production there and see how those are going to size up in the garden as well. We also are doing quite well with some of our other trees as far as growth, but not much production, and that's why it's so important that you keep on them with insects and disease observations and fertilizing and that kind of thing. And really, fruits are a high maintenance crop here in Oklahoma. Well, our peaches are starting to color up, and we've got a great crop this year. But how do you know when a peach is ripe? Well, the best way to check, a lot of us go by the red or pinkish color, but that's really not the best clue. It's usually best to look at the end and see the green color, which will change from a darker green to a lighter green and then to a pale color, depending upon the variety, of course. And I'd like to show some of the different pest problems we've had on our peach this year. Some of the ones that are just starting to turn ripe, we've got birds that come in and land on the branches and start pecking out the fruit, and that, of course, causes it to ripen quicker, and that attracts different butterflies and moths and flies. So those are a good idea to pull those away and get rid of them as quick as you can. Another common problem that we see, a lot of our viewers describe it as oozing on the fruit, and that's just from an insect called the plum curculio, and it has a beak that pokes a hole in there, and it causes a little bit of the juice to leak out, and then that will get usually a different type of mold or something on the sap that you see there. And these can be controlled with different pesticides earlier in the season. Now, one of the worst pests in the garden is the human species, and this particular one is our extension assistant, Alan Jobs, who I guess we can take his word for it. This one is definitely right, but we try to keep Alan under control as well. But another common problem in the garden is called brown rot. And really what happens, it's a fungus disease that gets on the fruit and it starts to deteriorate and it gets a lot of mold on it, fungal spores, and then it will just become mummified, and that's how it's described on the fruit, and it will eventually dry up and look like a seed hanging off of the tree. Now those will need to be pulled off or swept up if they fall on the ground, and we need to get rid of them because that's a great source to reinfect the fruit. The last one I want to show you is from an insect called stink bugs, and we're familiar with those, but when the fruit is immature, the bug will come in and again sting it, and it just causes it to become distorted. And there's a lot of other plant bugs as well that will cause this same symptom. And again, the fruit is still very tasty, but sometimes when they're damaged like this, they'll ripen a little bit quicker, so we really need to keep an eye on them. Now let me show you a variety next to this one that is a late maturing variety, and this one is called Topaz, and it really won't ripen until another probably 3 weeks, even 4 weeks, so it's a little bit later variety, where our other variety is really earlier. So you can see it still has a green color to it, but you'll see these specks on it, which is another disease called peach scab. And this one can deteriorate the fruit, but again, at maturity, if it's just the outside area, just peel it off and eat it anyway, but a lot of times for marketing fruit, it will have an impact. So as you can see, growing tree fruits is a high maintenance form of gardening. It takes a lot of input to get those picture-perfect fruit. But a lot of times, as you can tell by some of the samples I've shown you, they don't have to be picture-perfect to taste good.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.